Hello my friends, it's Ria, and I thought I would talk about a experience that happened to me when I was really young. It is a paranormal experience, or a ghost story if you like, and I'm going to try to tell this as much as I can remember it because I was a really little girl when this happened. Now, about your beliefs, if you believe in ghosts, great. If you don't believe in ghosts, great. If you believe in paranormal or not, either way, that's fine. If you just want to hear it just for the story's sake, that's cool too. I'm not going to change anyone's beliefs, but this is something that happened to me when I was really young, and I remember it. I'll probably remember it to the day I die, and some parts are a little vague because I was really young, but I figured I'd tell you my ghost story. So being a military kid, we moved around a lot, and I was actually born in the Philippines, and I've lived in Michigan, and for the majority of my life up until here recently, I lived down south, and the place that I'm talking about is down south, and it was on an Air Force base, and I was really young. Can't remember how young, but I mean, I wasn't even a teenager or a preteen at the time. But what happened is me and my family, my mom and dad and my older brother, we moved into the Air Force Base housing, and we moved into a duplex. If you don't know what a duplex is, it's a house, it's a full-size house. It's actually two full-size houses that are connected by one wall. I don't know why they made them like that, they just did. But our family moved on one side, and around the same time another family moved on the other side, and we became really good friends with this family. We shared birthdays and holidays and things like that. So it's just one of those things, like when you're a military kid and you live on one of the bases, especially when you have a dad or a parent, whoever that goes away a lot on tours or training or whatever, you kind of you have a network of other families that are supportive. So this family moved in at the same time as we did, and we just really got along, and because they had kids the same age as us, so we just all really got along. So we experienced a lot of the same things, and I'll get to that. So when we first moved in, nothing really happened. It was like any other house that we've moved into before. We were excited, new place, new area. It was actually closer to our other family too, so everything seemed alright. Not too long after that, and these are the things that I do remember, is strange things would happen. You would hear noises, you know, bumps, I guess you could say, in the night, a lot of knocking on walls and stuff like that. And me in particular, in my room, I was never really afraid of anything. I was very much a tomboy. I wanted to be like my older brother, so not a lot of things scared me. But at night, I started to hear things in my closet, and it sounded like, knocking around the closet, or like bats or something was in my closet, and it started to become a regular thing. With my brother, he started to hear things too. Not only that, but around the house, things like little things would be missing, or be misplaced or not where they were. So that was the beginning of it, just like weird sounds and knocking. Well, then things got a little bit worse, or a little bit stranger, I could say. Basically, I remember one time distinctively is my brother was looking for something. It was like a toy or something, and I was on top of his bed trying to help him find things, and I remember I went over the bed to flip up the cover to see if it was underneath the bed. When I flipped up the cover, this huge gust of wind basically blew in my face, and it kind of freaked me out because it was like, there should be no wind underneath your bed, but yeah, it was like this huge gust of wind, and I remember it actually moved my hair, and that was the first thing that like really freaked me out, because it was just, the whole monster under the bed thing. But I knew there wasn't a monster, there was just this weird gust of wind, and it just really startled me. So things like that started to happen, just weird things like that. The biggest thing that happened is at night we started to see what I would call the tall man. And when I was really little, I would always sleep with the door open. My parents it was just a thing. We always had my door open when I was little. I didn't close my door till I was a teenager, I would say. But I would sleep with the door open, and I would remember waking up in the middle of the night, and I would see a man, more like a figure of a man, in the door entranceway just staring at me. And it really freaked me out because I knew it wasn't my dad, because a lot of the times my dad was actually away. He was overseas, and this would happen when he was overseas. And I knew it wasn't my brother because at that time, my brother is really tall, but at that time he wasn't that tall. But another thing is you could tell that the man wore a hat. He wore like a wide brim hat, not quite a cowboy hat, but more like a fedora or something like that. It definitely had a brim. But I remember waking up on more than one occasion with this man just watching me sleep. And I don't know if, maybe he was confused or, didn't know who I was, but I would wake up and see this man. And I would yell and tell my mom. And, at first she was like, oh, it's nothing, it's okay, it's nothing. And then a couple of times, I believe my brother saw him too, and would try to tell my mom, and mom's like, y'all are just freaking each other out, it's no big deal. I knew I wasn't crazy when my dad was back home. He was done with his training or his overseas stuff, and he was, with us. And one night, him and my mom were asleep, and I heard her say, Frank, get up. You need to get up. There's a man in the house. There's a man in the house. You need to grab a bat. Like very furiously, like you need to get up. And she saw what I saw. She saw the man, the tall man with the hat, standing in their doorway. And that was the point in time that my mom knew that there was something going on. Now, my dad, I love my dad to death, but he could sleep through a hurricane. He could sleep through anything. He didn't see it because by the time he woke up, there was nothing there. And my mom tried to explain to him, I guess that's what they're talking about. I think we have a ghost. I think we have a ghost in our house. Well, come to find out, the neighbors next to us, like I said, we lived in a duplex, so we were connected by one wall. They had a lot of the same experiences too. But on their side, it was a little bit worse. And we're not quite sure why, but on their side, it was a little bit worse. They would hear the knocking sounds. They saw the tall man too. Just pretty much the same thing that happened to us. And I do remember this one time, the mom, she had her sister come into town and stay the night. Well, the woman did not stay the night in the house. She stayed for a little while, and my dad woke up the next day to go to work on the base, and he saw her sleeping in the car. So he knocked on the car and was like, what are you doing? Are you okay? Are you locked out of the house? Do you need to use the phone? And she's like, no, there's a bad spirit in this house. There's a ghost in this house. I will not sleep in that house. And my dad's like, okay, well, if you need to use anything, Jean's home, my mom is home, and, he didn't know what to do, really. I mean, what can you do when a person says that? And my dad's really skeptical. He's not really much of a believer in paranormal or anything like that. So he was just like, okay. So he was like, well, if you need anything, this is my number, and you could use our house or you could use our phone. Because like I said, like we knew that family and we were close to that family. So that was a weird thing, and the fact that like somebody came, a family member came from outside of that house to inside and was like, I'm not staying there because of the spirit. I want to say the worst thing that ever happened, and it wasn't towards us, it was towards the other family, I want to say it was a weekend night, and her husband was overseas for training or something. And all of a sudden we heard this huge crash. It was like a tornado or something. It was just this really loud crash. it made us all go silent. We were like, what is going on? What was that? What is that? Well, then all of a sudden we heard them knocking on our door. Well, they came inside and they were really scared. They were shaking. And I found out later on, when I was a little bit older, my mom told me what happened is that they were doing their, normal thing, normal nightly routine, getting ready for bed and everything. And then the loud crash happened, and what had happened is her washer and dryer was flipped upside down, like totally upside down. She ran into the washroom and it was flipped upside down, and she's a tiny woman. There was no way she could flip this by herself. There was just no way. So that was like one of the worst things. Shortly after that, they got a house transfer and they moved out, and it was sad because we liked them and we never got to see them again. We said our goodbyes, but they couldn't stay in that house. Like, for some reason he treated them a lot worse than he treated us, and we don't know why, but yeah, so that's what happened. So we had to move. I've always wondered about that house. I've always wondered, after we left, what did people experience, if they experienced the same things. I've always been curious about that. I've always wanted to go back and to see if that house is even still there, because I think that Air Force Base closed. I'm pretty sure it did, and I think it got turned into some other kind of housing. So what can I say? That was my first real paranormal experience. Ever since then, I've been a skeptical believer. I believe that, we're energy and everything's out there, so anything is possible. I'm not going to say there is, and I'm not going to say there isn't, but that was the experience I had. So I guess there you go. That's my first ghost story, and it's something that is going to be staying with me to the rest of my life. So I hope you enjoyed this story and whatnot. So thank you so much for listening to me. I know I'm silly and a dork, but I do appreciate it. So I'll talk to you next time. Bye.